The teams have had 90 minutes of running for the final round of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe. This is the endurance shootout, the finale at Barcelona. 90 minutes of running this morning. Proved slightly inconclusive, one feels, and some of the front runners are not at the front. My name is Bruce Jones, joined by John Watson. What can we expect from this pre-qualifying 90 minutes?
Well, pre-qualifying might be a little bit different to what we saw the session this morning. And there is the looking up the straight from turn one all the way back up to what would be effectively the starting grid, and just waiting for the weather the temperatures to come up, because this is pivotal to what happens at Barcelona. Now those 20 Celsius, that's a small increase, 31.1. 4 degrees warmer than it was this morning, but track temperature up massively by the best part of 15 plus degrees, and that is going to make a massive difference. What we saw this morning were cars that got close to the best times we'd seen on Friday, not quite eclipsing it. A lot of teams running around scratching their heads, not knowing where is our car performance. BMW mentioned it to me this morning, McLaren likewise, even Iron Link's Ferrari. 2 cars, one of them running as 33rd or something. The 71 car, or so the 51 car, that's the potential championship winner.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. The sister car, the 71 Iron Link's Ferrari, really not a great deal further up the order. But the car on screen now, the 63 Lamborghini, this is the Marco Mappelli, Andrea Cordarelli, Mirko Bortolotti car. Yesterday it was first in the morning, second in the afternoon. They were so confident today, they put 6 laps on the board, parked the car, went off for coffee and maybe a little biscuit or two. But they seem to have a grip on it. But then you talk, John, about the moving stage here. It's got a lot warmer. Will it work this afternoon when the track is what, plus 15 degrees?
Well, they had this experience on Friday. The track temperature would have been, well, I'll tell you precisely what the track temperature was on Friday morning, because it was 14.6, and in the afternoon it rose to 23.6. Now track temperature is 31.1. So the track is a lot warmer than it was through the 2 sessions on Friday, and a lot warmer than it was here this morning. And drivers, teams are standing around. Where's the McLaren speed gone? Where's the Ferrari speed gone? What about BMW? They're scratching their heads. Now, either they're playing a long game or playing a very clever game and disguising ultimate pace, so they don't want to let their principal competitors know the true story of what their car is capable of, or they are genuinely in a, you know what?
A dark place.
A dark place.
So, what we did see, though, was Mercedes looked very good indeed. In fact, we're riding on board one of them now, one that wasn't going so well this morning. Rick Broikers, the Mad Panda Motorsport car. When I last checked, it was down in about 30th position. We expect that far further up. 36th position overall.
This is a video game we're looking at. This is not live. This is a video game. You can tell from the angle of the camera, this is not genuine. Actually, when you're pulling your leg, this is a wonderful view of what a driver sees from the cockpit as he goes through turns 5 and 6 into the left at 7, run the curb on the inside. But then it's the curb here on 8 that you've got to be careful of. Then up the hill, up to the mighty turn 9. You turn in, it's a blind apex. You've got to get the nose in. You let the car run wide, but be careful not to run too wide, or else Alan Adan, the race director, will be on your case, and there will be potential penalties. New turn 10. Easier, I think, for everybody in general, then into 11. And then quickly back, the switch back to the right through turn 12. Run the car out to the outside of the corner, but make sure again you're respecting track limits, and that's Rick Broikers doing it, I think, by the book. Into turn 13. This is the part of the circuit that really disturbs the rhythm. Then the right at 14, left at 14, right at 15. Now run the curb and then flat out. Harry flatters through turn 16. Catch the curb, but don't drop the wheel into the gravel, or else you'll end up with a visit to the right-hand part of the racetrack and into the barrier.
Okay, so the first flying lap of the afternoon session in 1 minute 47.868. That is a banker, if anything. But don't forget, this is a 90-minute session. But what we've seen in qualifying for the other categories competing in Barcelona this weekend, you can make your space in traffic, have a brilliant run for 90% of the lap, then you get to that twisty final chicane, you find cars going slowly. It's going to be a big problem. We've got 46 cars. These are big cars, these GT3 cars. They've got to fit them on the track at the point we're looking at right there, and so many laps get ruined.
And Andrea Caldarelli, coming through turn 15, was backing up the Ferrari directly behind, and that would have been a frustration. So Caldarelli's got a relatively clear track to now go on and do his first effective flying lap. He's already done 2 laps, but this may be the first serious run we're seeing today from that 63 Lamborghini. There it is, coming into turn one. One of those corners that's, again, you can overrun it by just being a little bit too optimistic on your brakes. And then into the long, long, never-ending turn three. Watch on the apex, and then on the exit, because this is where we're seeing, again, cars running right off and onto the runoff tarmac on the outside. So Andrea Caldarelli just over a tenth of a second up in sector one on his own personal time, and that was a 150.3. So it's not a stellar increase. Now, just back out of it. There's no point, because he's got traffic. He's got through one of the cars. He's got, what, 4 other cars directly ahead of him, and it is just a real nightmare for a driver who's trying to go out and establish a benchmark time as early as possible. And what does he find? Traffic. And I'm not talking about the great band called Traffic. We remember that one, Bruce. Young fans today wouldn't know what Traffic was if it bit them on the nose.
Right now, Bentley weaving its way through the order, but yeah, traffic absolutely everywhere. The Grasser Racing Lamborghini in his path here. Same car, but not different, same team. Gets his way through, and he's being followed by the Ferrari as well.
I mean, the poor, I can't recognise the Ferrari just off the top of my head.
It's the Kessel Racing car.
It is, number 11. It's been stuck behind Andrea Caldarelli for an entire lap. He's trying to get his, look again, what Caldarelli's backing it all up. And what can you say, the Ferrari behind, it's just one of those scenarios. He can do nothing about it. There's no way he can find a way around the Lamborghini at this time. So he's just going to sit there now. The gap has opened up, so Andreas goes again.
Right, this morning we had the BMWs nowhere at all. They were down at the tail end. We've got one at the top of the field. It's the Bussonginian car, which is a Pro-Am car, and it's the Pro, Jens Klingmann, top. 1 minute 46.779 seconds. He's clear of Mathieu Jaminet, who put his Porsche to the top. And the McLaren is starting to show its hand. It was all over this place this morning in the 90 minutes, bedding in brakes, finding grip, very hard to come by, but Ben Barnicoat up into 4th place overall, 3/10 down on the ultimate place.
Jens Klinsmann has gone a second a lap faster on that first flying lap than the car did all the way through that 1.5-hour session this morning.
But what we tend to find, and we saw this with Dominic Baumann, who was fastest in the practice this morning, he put his time in his first flying lap of the day, and thereafter the next hour and 15 minutes or so for the session, no improvements.
Watch out for car 88. Raffaello Marcello is now purple sector 1, purple sector 2, and he ought to be the first driver to decimate. In fact, the fastest car is now the 87 ACA ASP Thomas Brouet. He's on a 146.6. Whereabouts on the lap is coming up across start finish line. We're going to see it now. Fastest will be 88. Raffaele Marcello, correct,
but only by 0.149 of a second from the sister car. Thomas Drouet just went over, but the speed with which Raffaele came through the final corner, absolutely visible how much faster than those around him. So he's put that one in. So ACA ASP, and we had 4 Mercedes in the top 4 positions. We've got 2 Mercedes in the top 2 positions so far. But for Jens Klingmann, and we just saw him in the wackily liveried number 10 Bussonginian BMW, of course, that's a Pro-Am lineup, and it's the Pro putting in his laps, but still impressive.
Now, another car's gone well is the 38 Toyota McLaren. I spoke to team principal this morning, David Clark, and he was saying, oh, we don't know where the performance has gone. Car's not slipping, it's sliding, it's doing this and doing that. Well, obviously it's slipping and sliding. It's only gone 6th quickest, and there's still a lot more performance left in the tank. But eventually and ultimately, what will be the determinant factor about the ultimate pace of any of these 47 cars is who's got the freshest rubber at the time and the track is at its clearest, and can go out and nail a lap. And that's what they're thinking about, not so much now in this session, although it is a time that the race will be, well, the race will be starting around 2:45 on Sunday afternoon. So it's not a million miles away from the kind of ambient and track temperatures you would expect then. So we're getting a gauge of what the ultimate pace is in these conditions. Qualifying tomorrow morning in the cooler conditions, track conditions, should be a totally different game, and expect to see times comfortably in the 145s. Maybe somebody might kiss into a very high 144.
I think so too. Of course, it all gets masked this morning. Very few people using fresh rubber. It's all about saving your rubber, but the 88 ACA ASP car, it was just, Raffaele knew he had 1 lap in which to make his space in the traffic, carry whatever speed he could build, use the tyres to what degree, but he's only slightly faster than his teammate, 0.149 ahead of Thomas Drouet, and Thomas running in the Silver Cup class. But one of the Lamborghinis we've got, they're normally in the mix, so far been in the mix, but the best one, I've got to look all the way down to Albert Costa in 19th place overall. Sorry, the 17th place is Alex Fontana. Fontana 2 places back, Costa, so the pace not there. And the 63 car that sat in the pit lane all morning, Andrea Cordarelli, we saw him backing other cars up. I think he's on a totally different programme. Some of the stuff they've already got through, they saved the tyres this morning doing it now, but he's down in 31st out of the 46 runners.
But in reality, Caldarelli hasn't had a clear lap because he's trying to find space, trying to make that lap, but he's ended up having to back out of the lap. So he is backwards and forwards and up and down. The pace in the car is clearly there from the times that we saw on Friday. Best lap was of 45.221 on Friday morning. So that we know the pace is there. But of course, right now, Caldarelli's time is a 1:48.3. That's against a 45.2, 3 seconds different. Obviously, Caldarelli's lost the plot. Clearly, he's not driving as well as he drove on Friday. That's what a team principal would say to a driver. You're not performing, get out there and perform.
Of course, the team principal has to know exactly how each of his drivers reacts to certain stimuli.
Caldarelli is the team principal. He's got to tell himself off.
Pull himself up by his bootstraps. Right, Sarah Bovey just finds an improvement. Iron Link's running 3 cars this weekend. The one with the pink livery is the one with the all-female crew. Sarah Bovey showing that with Michelle Gatting, who's normally competing in the European Le Mans Series. She's having her series debut. And the diminutive Dorian Pin is the 3rd driver in that car. But really the important 2 cars are the 71 and 51 cars for Iron Links. The 51 is the championship leading car. It's middle order at the moment. It's 22nd. Raffaele Marcello is fastest so far, nearly 1.8 seconds down on the pace. They didn't have the pace this morning in 51. They haven't got it this afternoon, and they haven't got it in the 71 car either because that hasn't featured. I think that's a car that could have a role to play in the race. 71,
Jake Dennis, the second of these 2 cars, just behind the number 4 Mercedes. So again, speaking to Jake, as we had a very pleasant lunch over a delicious chicken thigh and some potato dauphinoise, those gourmets amongst us. And Jake was explaining just where he feels the current M6 BMW is in relation to the competition. And he's looking forward, depending on what he's going to be doing next year, but he's indicating he would love to be a part of what BMW do.
And of course,
the new M4, which we've got here running as a sort of a teaser for 2022, will be a totally different proposition.
It really will. And out in the Twitter sphere, you can find there's a tweet put up from Santalot Racing showing the difference between their 2 Audis, because we've got the Evo Audi R8 LMS here as well. So look out for BMW Motorsports entry, the 82, which is the M4 GT3. No longer will the M6 GT3 be the works entry, the customer entry. It'll be M4s all the way from next year. And look too for the Santalot Racing Audi R8 LMS. It's the 26. That's the GT3 Evo 2 with Marcus Winkelhock, Finlay Hutchison, the Scottish driver, and Dennis Lint racing that this weekend. And that's in traditional silver, white and red Audi livery. So we're getting a taste of the future, and it's always good when you get the cars alongside each other. John and I were picking out the changes of the rear wing in the most notable change on the Evo 2 Audi. But at one point, do you remember going through, we had a speed trap, an AWS speed trap, the top of the hill at turn 9, and the fastest car through there was the Audi Evo 2, but it was 6 kilometers an hour faster than anybody else, which was extraordinary.
I personally have said it was rather rude.
Rude, yes.
To show your hand in such a very obvious and rather blatant manner, but, well, who's to blame Finlay Hutchinson? He was just driving a car that was giving him the confidence to go through turn 9 quicker than anybody else.
Quick little check at the top of the table. It's now Fabian Schiller by 9,000ths of a second faster than Raffaele Marcello. So for Ram Racing, a shout out for them, and that means it's 3 Mercedes in the top 3 positions. Jens Klingmann moving back to 4th place. And what can Porsche do? So far, Mathieu Jaminet, here he is. He's 5th fastest at the moment. He was fleetingly right at the front end, but he's only just come back out of the pit, so it's going to take a while for him to wind it up. And
the Pro-Am Get Speed Mercedes of Jimmy Pla has now popped up into 3rd position, and that is just a 10th and a fraction off the best of Fabian Schiller. So Mercedes are now the top 4. We saw that this morning, and it's just a mirror of what we had a few hours ago. The best of the rest right now still is Jens Klingmann in the BMW, followed by Mathieu Jaminet. James Poole 7th in the Audi, a good run from him. Ben Barnacourt in the McLaren, Christopher Haase and Dennis Marshall rounding out the top 10.
And one car that's sort of missing from that equation because it's down in 33rd position of the 45 runners is Mauro Engel. Look out for that number 4 HRT Mercedes. It's the one with the white, pink and blue BWT livery. Certainly from a Porsche front of view, the GPX Racing entry car number 22, Mathieu Jaminet at the wheel. No improvement for him in the first sector, but that one seems to be looking pretty tidy on its feet. The McLaren down in 8th place, finding its form, but let's see what I'm just looking for anybody who's completely out of position at the moment. Certainly the Mauro Engel car in 32nd position.
I think Fabian Schiller's time has been deleted because we've got Marcello back at the top. So maybe that was a track limit of use, and now it's Marcello, Pla, Drouet, Lieberhausen in the BMW, Mathieu Jaminet, James Poole. That's the top 6, and we can't look down and find out where. Can't even, just on the timing and scoring, can't quite catch where.
He's down in 42nd position.
That's why I'm looking at the wrong page.
So it's great to have a lot of cars, but if you suddenly lose someone who's had a time taken away, it does take a bit of a while to find them. And in fact, the difference between being top and being down in 42nd position is nearly 3.8 seconds. That is how much better his best flying lap was. Okay, we've only had a short time in this session. We've still got an hour and a quarter remaining.
Thomas Neubar in 36th position. Indeed, he is well spotted there. So down through turn 2, then this long. It's this kind of corner where I've always felt that some of the strengths the BMW enjoys is going to play out here. It's, you know, we know it's a fantastic car, endurance car. It is longer in the tooth than probably some of its contemporaries, and of course, just progress is now so rapid. I mean, you look down the pit lane, 47 entries for this event in the middle of October, at the end of a season, when teams have been working absolutely flat out to win any of the opportunities in championships. But do you know what's even more impressive? I walked down the back of the pits this morning and looked at the hospitalities. Some of the hospitalities available, I mean, one was the Iron Lynx, and I thought, am I in a Formula One paddock? Because it is, and that's indicative of why this championship and these races have become such an important and I mean, just an amazing series.
Well, it really is, and I mean, sometimes the advance of professionalism is a bit of a creep, and you don't notice. But when you if you take a photograph now and you take one in 2 or 3 years' time, it will have kept on evolving every single aspect up and down the pit lane in the paddock. But yes, you're quite right. It really has the feel of like being at a Grand Prix, except with more access and more variety and many things. And I can see certainly why it works so well, but also the sheer diversity of machinery. Yes, we've talked about how we've got a lot of Mercedes at the top, but that's suddenly changed as we've got a BMW up there, we've got a Porsche, we've got the Audis, we've got a McLaren. It's a fantastic mix, and the Lamborghinis are starting to make their moves up the order a little bit. One just ran very wide out of the final corner a couple of minutes ago, but just about kept it on the straight and narrow. But track limits, they're definitely going to be a feature through the course of this event. But right now, with the grid that we're going to get tomorrow morning, some people are going to be going, we tried as hard as we can, we're 35th. What can we do from there? Well,
on top of that, there are some driver car combinations that are on the bubble for penalties, one of which is potentially the 32 WRT Audi that Dries van Thor has built up a little sort of store. So if he does something as, you know, one might say insignificant as maybe a pit lane infringement, could have a significant effect on his when he gets into the 3 hours here at Barcelona tomorrow afternoon.
It is, and I mean, any particular penalty, you could suddenly have a five-place penalty that undoes all the work you've done in trying to get your car at the front end. We don't think at the moment that the Audi just has the pace to match the Mercedes and the best of the Porsches as well, or the McLaren, but this in practice, it's changing so much in terms of track temperature. What was it this morning, John? 17 degrees? It was
this morning, well, ambient was 16, track was 17.
Okay.
Ambient's only gone up by 4 degrees, but track's gone up by just under 16. So that's the big difference between what we had starting here at 9 o'clock. It's now, local time here is now 2:05 in the afternoon. And it's the story of this racetrack. It's the history, the 30 years this racetrack has been in operation since I think the first race car ran here, rolled down the pit lane at 9 o'clock or whatever time, and by the time they finished at 5 in the evening, there was so many teams and drivers and engineers scratching their head, wondering what has happened, where's our pace gone?
Well, one team finding its feet. You spoke to them earlier. Jota, because Ben Barnicoat's taken his McLaren up to, he's just under half a second down on the ultimate pace, but he's up into 5th place. Other cars diving in and out of the pit lane, working through their program. It's a 90-minute session, plenty to be done, but it almost feels like another day from this morning session. The track temperature has risen enormously, as John pointed out. Wind direction's often a feature here, certainly when Formula One used to come and do endless testing here. It was like testing at 2 different circuits in a day, if not more. Track temperature changing, wind direction changing, so many variables. And it could be a help, it could be a hindrance, but if your car wasn't going well, it was a hindrance.
I might say it's a sort of a Mediterranean kind of thing, because Paul Ricard, likewise, suffered from a similar sort of syndrome. When you go out first thing in the morning, the track is quicker than Dick Tracy. By the time you get to midday, early afternoon, where's the pace gone? Track has changed. It's suddenly now the level of bite and grip and feel is altered, and you start ending up chasing the circuit. And one of the things that I suppose one might say experienced engineers and teams try to avoid is to end up chasing the racetrack, because you'll end up changing the car and you'll go a 360 and come back to where you were at the very beginning of the day. And what happens in between is frankly pointless.
So the moral of the story, if it was someone like Paul Ricard, it's going well in the morning, pack up and go and have a good lunch down on the coast. Well, is that what you're trying to say?
No, I think what happens is you get one time in the morning, one time in the middle of the day, and one time at the end of the day, and you've got to work out what way is the best way to make your car work. Bearing in mind that most races commence around about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and certainly here in Barcelona, that's going to be the hottest part of the day.
So Christian Engelhardt had picked his way into the top 10, so the 2 Porsches in the top 10. It's Mathieu Jaminet, GPX Racing in 1. Now we're looking at Ben Barnicoat, who has had 2 sensational runs, Brands Hatch, and it didn't come to fruition there with the crash for Ollie Wilkinson, and then again at Circuit Ricardo Tormo 2 weekends ago, just outside Valencia. Circuit packed into the size of most people's rear garden, if they've got a fairly generous rear garden, but 4 and a bit, just over 4 kilometres. So many turns, and the McLaren was just super around all of them, and seems the mojo has come back to the team, bedding in stuff this morning. Still on the first part of this lap, he was improving on where he'd been before, within half a second of the ultimate pace. This is pre-qualifying. Qualifying itself starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. The track will be totally different.
Now, interestingly, Ben Barnicoat has just come into the pit lane, recorded his fastest individual time in Sector 1 on that in lap. So
more to come.
He aborted a lap in which probably would have gone marginally quicker. But they've got to work, they've got a plan, they've got to stick to the plan. That's ultimately the key. On board with the Bentleys is Stuart Hall.
It should be Stuart White.
Stuart White,
CMR blasting down the start for the straight, but Bentley's just haven't featured. He's in the top half of the grid, because you need to be 23rd and above to be in the top half. He's 19th. No improvement last time around, but close to his best, within 2/10 of his best. 1.3 seconds down on the ultimate pace for the South African. But talking to the drivers, John, a lot of them are talking about qualifying, very important, but also how your tyres are how your car's set up to still handle its tyres, keep them sweet towards the end of your 1 hour stint. We've got a 3-hour race. They've got to make their tyres sweet. And Jules Gougnard went as far as saying that is the most important element here.
Absolutely right. I mean, on the inside that he sneaks through, gets the job done, so space provided. So Stuart White finds that little bit of track space and continues on his way. That car currently in 19th position. Christian Engelhardt, by the way, in the number 54 Porsche, has progressed up to 5th. Likewise, Kiko Galbiani in the Geraso Racing Lamborghini has gone up to 12th. Maro Engel in the number 4 HRT Mercedes, likewise making progress, 16th quickest. It only just indicates the team again working their way through a schedule.
Yeah, Engelhardt had been 9th, went to 5th, so he's within 5 tenths, within half a second, the top 6 runners. Marcello Drouet, Scholzer in there. Mercedes. Scholzer's time was actually set by Jim Pla in that Gatsby Mercedes. Then Jens Liebhauser's now taken over the 4th fastest car, the BMW that Jens Klingmann set a time in. Christian Engelhardt into 5th, Ben Barnicoat 6th, 0.447 of a second cover the top 6 runners.
Miguel Ramos in the 77 Barwell Motorsport. We rode on board briefly with the 77 Barwell Lamborghini. Right down 44th position. And Rob Collard in the 69 Racing Mercedes is the slowest right now. Again, that's where we are. What, a few minutes before 10 past the hour. So, frankly, everything we're seeing right now, maybe outside of the top 5 or 6, is relatively meaningless. Oliver Wilkinson has taken over the wheel, by the way, of the 38 McLaren from Ben Barnicoat. So he'll have a little run. And that's why Ben Barnicoat came in at that particular point, because it was a scheduled program. Come in now, let's put the young pretender, the apprentice, behind the wheel and see what he can do.
Yeah, everybody needs their track time. It's all one thing. If you've got one driver who's very kind on the tyres through the course of a stint, happy with the setup, but if another one isn't and it's not working for them, they've got to think about it. Raffaele Marcello completes another lap, but a slow lap for him, 3 minutes. And again, in and out of the pits, interrupts the flow.
But just as we're going to say, just directly ahead, just got out of picture, is the BMW M4 with its now extremely distinctive new front. No, there it is. But that is the future of BMW. They're not going to have that sort of kidney-shaped grille that they used to have. That was, you know, the BMW sort of symbol for so many years. This is the new image that BMW are going to promote in all the range of cars that are now going to be coming out of Munich.
And actually, when we get a close-up look at the 82 BMW, the BMW M4 Gt3. John and I were looking at images from the pit lane this morning. The entire bonnet section is so super sculpted. It's not just something between the grille and the windscreen. It's very much been worked on enormously for aerodynamic distinction.
I'd love to have a look at it up close and see just, you know, the detail and the engineering that's gone into producing this new race car, production race car from the Munich manufacturer. I mean, at the rear you can see the lineage, but when you see around the front of the car and the way that the carbon fiber, the wing is the engine cover, which is a loose description to say bonnet. I mean, it is just, it's a work of art.
It is. You almost need to see it in one colour to appreciate the actual shape, but it's very fluted up the middle of that enormous maw, that huge grille. You think about the original size of the kidney shape. It's grown and grown and grown. Now it's stretching right down to just above the front splitter, but obviously that would certainly help in terms of airflow into the engine bay, but that is the standout look. It's had a couple of races already in the Nürburgring Langstrecken series, a series that has 4 and 6 hour races around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, with principally not this driver at Jesse Krohn on board, but Augusto Farfus and Philipp Eng. Works BMW drivers have been getting the testing mileage in, and as you know, John, with a GT3 car, actually you learn so much more in a race than you do just in a standard test. So that is why it's had a couple of outings. That is why it's here, as well as showing its wares. But at the moment, it's not at the front end of the field. It's 27th out of the 45 cars.
Matteo Drudi's Attempto Audi sitting up at the taxle stands. Now, I'm assuming that's going to be a tyre change. Well, somebody was going to the left front. As we look at the number 2 Get Speed car, Florian Schultz behind the wheel. And of course, Jim Pla is, one might say, the man, but Olivier Groot's not bad either. But running it pretty wide on the exit of turn 16. During the GT4 qualifying, there was an Audi that just got too wide and did a quick 90-degree and ended up nosing into the barrier at the exit of the corner. Didn't do the barrier too much damage, but did a fair bit to the Audi.
It certainly did. I've just been counting down the field. We've been talking of 46 runners. We're now to 45, and I've just worked out which one's missing. It's the 188 Aston Martin, Chris Goodwin, Alexander West and Johnny Adam. That had been at the bottom of the timesheets, pretty much penultimate position this morning. So can't see down to their pit garage from here, but normally, well, we'll see. It may yet come out. We've still got just over an hour remaining. They must be down at pit exit end. Just as far as much as I crane my head, I can't see them, but still an amazing field of cars. But it seemed to get enough laps in this morning. It got
they did 36 altogether.
Yeah, no, they did more than that. That was when they set their best time, so they did more than 36 laps. But anyhow, let's hope it's nothing serious that would keep them out of the meeting. So let's reappraise at the top of the table. It's Raffaele Marcello by 0.149 of a second from one of the sister ACA ASP Mercedes. So it's Mercedes. Then a blink of an eye behind it, third place. The Get Speed Mercedes, the one you're seeing on screen, Fabian Scholzer at the wheel, but the time was set by Jim Pla early on. They're covered by 0.163 of a second, a tenth of a second further back. The best BMW, it's the Buisson-Gignon car in 4th place overall, time set by Jens Klingmann. And Klaus Bachler has now got on board the dynamic racing Porsche 54, the better place, those two front-running Porsches, and the second of the cars is the 21 Porsche, just a couple of places further down the field, the car from GPX Racing. Interestingly,
it's the number 30 WRT Audi, Stuart Hall behind the wheel, that is currently leading the Audi charge, followed by Christopher Hasse in the Sanderlock entry, and then the 99 of the Attempter Racing LK. So where is the 32? Well, you've got to look all the way down to 18th position to find the 32, the car with Dries van Thor, Charles Weerts and Robin Friens, and that's a car we have always imagined is going to be pretty much in the mix of the very front of the field.
Yes, it is confusing when you think I'll look for the I'll find their car. So you look for the top 6 positions, they're not there. Top 10. I know we've got a huge field, but last race meeting we had 2 weeks ago, also in Spain, WRT just weren't in a sweet spot. The Audi not in a sweet spot, and though already Weerts and Van Tor have won the Sprint Cup, they've won the overall trophy, but they want to get the treble. They want to win the Endurance Cup. They're sitting second in this championship, 13 points down on the 51 Ferrari. And from their point of view, at least they're ahead of that, because the Ferrari in 29th position overall. So the Ferrari that is leading the championship, the Audi in second place, are right in the middle of the muddle.
We were on board with Yusuf Ahaka in the 19 Mad Panda Mercedes. Now Rolf van Eycken down into turn 10. So an improvement in sector 1, but a significant loss in sector 2. And the middle sector of this Circuit de Catalunya is fundamentally the more technical part of the sector, until you come to sector 3, when you've got this much frustrating in a way for competitors. So 13, 14, 15, and then we go into turn 16, which has always been a mega corner, whether you have a chicane or no chicane, and continues on his way, but stays in 23rd.
Well, that car is the car that's almost got the title in the Silver Cup in the bag, but not yet, sitting on a 24-point advantage over the number 99 Attempter Racing Audi, which is Alex Arca. And his teammates Dennis Marshall and Max Hoffer haven't been in all the races with him, so he sits second on his own.
Evo!
Take a look at the rear wing. That's where the principal difference lies. I think the undercar aerodynamics are different too. So the Scottish racing driver Finlay Hutchinson on board the 26 crew. I said it was in the traditional Audi Sport livery, and it most certainly is. But this is a car not eligible for points in this race because it's next year's car. And likewise, that BMW M4 Gt3 that we saw a short while ago, car number 82, is here for the fun, but not for the points.
And it's all, again, a process of learning and gaining knowledge of the car under race conditions. Never, when you go testing, even if you do a simulation race distance, do you gain the kind of information that you will generate over a race as you look forward. Mercedes number 90 coming into the first turn. So
working hard, bouncing over the curbs, but staying off the curbs here is a sort of kind of thing. We were talking earlier, John, from running it wide. Just heard news from the pit lane, not news that I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear what it was, but not news that any Aston Martin fans would have there. It's a cracked chassis they're investigating on the 188 Aston Martin, which may have explained why it wasn't as fast as normal. That certainly wouldn't have helped the handling, particularly in a car with the likes of Johnny Adam in. You know, if the car's competitive, he'll move it up the order, even in a field as jam-packed here. The Evo Audi running off the circuit a little bit there, John. The handling all went away, didn't it?
Hanging the taillights coming out of turn 5. No, I mean, anything within the integral design or chassis of the car that has got a compromise and a fracture or a crack, while in itself might not sound so dramatic, but it can have a bearing on the very fine balance that a racing driver seeks. And what you're looking for is continuity and consistency. If that's a fracture that's been evolving and over the period of maybe could have been a result of something that happened a race or a race two ago. But now it's reached the stage where the team are stripping the car back to almost to the bare bones and then discovering an issue, and how the team will go about repairing that, whether it'll be simply a matter of just getting the welding torch out and re-welding or whatever it is, or something I don't know, I need to see the car to be able to get a better opinion, but if we look at the 87, Tereshchenko, Konstantin Tereshchenko, he's taken over from Jim Pla, and going on his way. So Simon Gachet was the other driver behind the wheel. Simon Gachet was pretty impressive in the car alongside Jim Pla earlier in the morning. But really, where are the greens? This is almost what we saw this morning.
Well, there's still,
you get a big flush of times in the first 20 minutes, and then it's, where have they gone?
It's actually almost just the first sort of just over a dozen minutes in this. They make a bit of space in traffic, see what the tyres can do, and then it's like they just flick a switch and go into a different program. Yes, we just saw the Audi Evo 2 getting a twitch and a bit of a fumble out of turn 5 as the track dropped away, came back towards the rear of the paddock, but four wheels off the circuit. But right now the cars aren't running around with that attitude of being right on the ragged edge. They almost look as though they're in race setup, which is of course what they are. They're planning towards tomorrow afternoon's race. It starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and right now it's 20 past 2, so it should be similar track conditions today. But you looked at your weather app, John, and suggested there may be a flurry of rain tomorrow morning or afternoon.
Well, I think that might have been an earlier interpretation. When I checked it out before I got down to Barcelona, that was what was indicated, but I think weather patterns move as quickly as apps change. So it would appear that we're going to have a fair, maybe a bit of overhead cloud, but no indication of rain. Wouldn't have spiced things up if there was a little bit of rain, because one of the issues at Catalunya, Circuit de Catalunya, is you do get a lot of car bunching, but not a lot of overtaking. And the way that you can really excite a race is to have a track that goes wet very suddenly and then dries out more slowly. And that mixes and matches people's strategies. And some people will try and brave it out and stay out on a wet track and slick tires, and others will dive at the earliest opportunity to get the security of a set of wet weather tires.
Now, one of the things I've been watching just out of the corner of our eye, we're sitting at the start of the grandstand over the start-finish straight, is the pace of cars that are coming in pit entrance. They come in at the very last second. They slow it down when they get to the pit speed limiter limiting line. But in these things, just being dawdling for half a second could make the world of difference. So drivers maximising in the sort of Michael Schumacher way every second they're in the car.
Absolutely, and I remember watching Michael Schumacher do that very thing way back in the early or middle 90s. And he was about one of the first drivers who realized that you can win more time on the entrance to a pit lane than you can if you're trying to find time a second or two, and the circuit is more difficult. But that is now the form everybody is coming through. There's a long sweeping right-hand curve, which is about half the width of the racetrack. And I mean, they're coming through that at a lick of maybe 120, 140 kilometers per hour, or let's say 70 to 80 miles an hour. And then they've got to nail the brakes. There's a broad white painted line, and they've got to get the car down to 50 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, I was just watching one of the Bentleys coming in, and that one needs to up its pace before the white line and slow it down. You could see quite clearly a second being tossed out the window. Yes, they're not right on it today, but you might as well be coming into the pit lane just so you really know what you're doing. Right, the number 4 Mercedes, always a feature in this race from HRT, but it hasn't really happened yet. In the top 20, yes, with Mauro Engel up in 16th place, but that is Mauro Engel territory. I must notice though his best lap and his last lap separated by 15 1,000, so at least he's got consistency, but he'd rather throw that out the window and get pace. He wants pace.
Look, I mean, everybody's doing much the same thing. But two driver car combinations, I would ask a question: where is the 32 Audi? Well, it's down in 18th position. Where is the 51 Ferrari, the car that's leading the championship and could go on and take it? It's down in 30th. I mean, those are two cars that by nature and right should be at the front of a grid. They may well be when we come to qualifying tomorrow morning, but right now they're not.
Right, just watching Mauro Engel coming in, and I don't often get to say this, Mauro's got some room for improvement. He didn't really get close to the white line that marks the point where you have to be down at pit lane speed limit. He's got a few more meters he can squeak in there. It's a bit like watching a runner coming to the takeoff board in the long jump, getting there, how close they can get their field, the front of their landing foot to the soft material that they will dent if they exceed it. And sometimes you see a whole foot length, and that was certainly the case for him there.
Well, there's one Porsche, but another one has made some progress. The 56 is up to 23rd, but that is the sister car, and that is currently Klaus Bachler in 5th position. But again, on this lap, not showing anything that would make you want to sort of shake or concern yourself about what the car is doing in Sector 1?
Effectively, John, they've said the first driver out in any of these cars, in these 3 driver combinations, they will go and set the quickest lap they can early on, and then you're going to work through what you're going to work through. And really, it's only if you've not sent your fastest driver out with the tyres at the start of the session that you're going to see a driver improving later on. So that's maybe not very good news indeed for the 51 Ferrari, still down in that 13th position, for Dries Van Toor in the championship, chasing 32 Audi as well. So that's down in 18th. So they're really out of kilter, out of sorts, but maybe, just maybe, they're actually finding the information they really, really need that's going to, you know, pay dividends tomorrow. But right now it must feel very odd if you're used to being at the front end of the grid and find yourself down in 18th position.
I reckon after qualifying tomorrow we can look back at what teams that have qualified, let's say in the first 5 rows of the grid, what were they doing on Saturday in the afternoon or in the morning, or what are they doing on Friday in the afternoon? And I promise you the grid for the 3-hour endurance race on Sunday afternoon will not mirror what we are saying, with the exception of people like the 88 and maybe the 87 Mercedes. There's too many other top teams and top driver combinations that are well and truly outside of their natural, what I would call, grid positions.
Well, one Aston Martin doing the sort of performance that, well, at least it's going around and lapping, but the 159 car, Nikolai Ikea out there, bouncing off the curves. That's the sort of performance that may lead to a cracked chassis. The sister car, the 188, though, Garage 59, sitting in the garage being checked out. But how hard in these cars, John, can people hit curbs? It's also the angle at which you hit curves, but 13 and 14 is very, very vicious indeed as they turn into that chicane.
Well, I mean, it depends on the curb itself. Some of the curbs here, or well, most of the curbs here are what I would call relatively flat. So the prospect of doing a significant amount of damage with a big shock load is not massive, but nevertheless, it's more, or I should say, it's as much the angle as the speed is at the time the contact occurs. And I mean, you could rip a wheel off if you hit a curb really, really aggressively in a manner where you put loads into the suspension in a way the car was not designed to be used.
I have actually just found us an improvement in time, but alas, it's no improvement in position. And alas, for Fabrizio Crestani, his Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, I expected to be about 20th. He's down in 39th position. That's not good at all. Another car.
So that's an improvement.
It's indeed, that's what I'm saying. I've found an improvement, but it hasn't really taken it anywhere. It's left it where it was in terms of position. He's squeaked a few more tenths of a second, perhaps, but he's sitting there in that Ferrari, 2 and a bit seconds off the pace. Now he's moved back to 40th position. Because one of the cars behind has just set the time in green. It's Indy Donchi, the number 5, the second of the HRT Mercedes, has moved on to our first timing screen, but only to 33rd position overall. The sister car, the number 4, is sitting a little higher up the order in 16th. But again, traffic, ambition, program, not all the same thing. People coming in from different angles, but it's about cycling drivers through now. Felipe Fraga is in the pits in the 88 Mercedes. Raffaele Marcello set the fastest time in. Jules Gounon presumably will go out towards the very end of the session, but it's about pounding around now. It's not about pace.
I mean, the time that the 88 car has set in this session, the 1:46.5. Well, let's look back and see what that car did yesterday. It did a 1:46.0. Best was a 1:45.2 by the 63 Lamborghini. So that was a time, I don't know where it came from, but it was maybe a new set of tires or something. But the 88 Mercedes did a 46.0, and then in the afternoon did a 46.7.
Right, we got a gain at last. Suddenly Romain Dumas gone from 23rd to 14th in this number 56 Dynamic Motorsport Porsche. He's sharing that with Andrew Rizzoli and Mikkel Overgaard Pedersen. In fact, last time, John, we saw that I sort of sat and really watched him racing because I wasn't at Nürburgring. He was racing an enormous Ford Thunderbird at the Goodwood Revival. Loving it.
Oh, well, I mean, I suppose one could say versatility is a big part of Romain Dumas' career. Oh, who's gone? Oh, no, it's not. It's the camera going all arty. I thought that was a massive cloud dust. Creative camera work, at least it enlivens us in the commentary booth when we saw that.
Yeah, we both suddenly starstruck. I was about to jump in with the same thing. Who's kicked up the dust? Nobody has this time around, but they will before the session is over, be sure of that. And Indy Doncha, suddenly 1 lap he improved from about 40th to 33rd. Now he's up, right up the order into 14th place, and actually he's moved ahead of the sister car. It's moved ahead of Mauro Engel's car, so the Dutch racer He's within a second of pole. Well, he's not. He's 1.066, but it's not pole anyhow.
Fresh rubber.
Fresh rubber,
That's
exactly.
what it is, fresh rubber.
Why don't the other teams think of these things?
Well, that's about timing. I think when you put your set of fresher, not necessarily new, but certainly fresh air set on. Not to take anything away from Indy Duncher, who did a very good job to get that car and improve upon the time. Right, but there's always a reason behind these things. They don't just happen by chance.
No, exactly so. Not on a track as crowded as this, that's for sure. So, riding on board with Marco Mappelli, hours of turn number 4. This is a car that sat out most this morning's session. And so far, John, not looking too sweet. Down in 20th position, pretty much halfway down this 45-car pack.
Well, let's wait and see what Mappelli does. He's gone through Sector 1 on a 31.0. And that doesn't indicate it's an improvement on anything previously. Now exit turns 8, up the hill, has to breathe the throttle, gets the nose in, and runs just to the exit. Now the downhill, it doesn't look like it is a downhill run, but in fact if you're walking it, it's noticeable. Then into turn 10, gets the nose in, the car does all you would ask of it. Doesn't run very wide on the exit of 10, just keeps it tight through 11, and then transits through to turn 12, and that V10 howls away. So into 13, be neat and tidy, don't muller the curbs, and then out through 15. Then you can run the curb on the exit of 15, but don't be too greedy about it because it will unsettle the rear. The car comes across the line. So Marco Mappelli currently in 20th, best lap 47.8. I can't look down, that's 48.5.
And while all that was going on, I was watching the timing screens, and Indy Doncher, who got up to 14th place, had that lap taken away, fell down to 33rd position again, and now has improved a second time, and he's gone a little higher, but only to 26th. But again, it just proves there will be drivers who, in the course of qualifying tomorrow, will have their best laps taken away from them, and it's going to really, really hurt. It's going to keep us on our toes with 40, hopefully back to 46 cars to marshal tomorrow and see how they're faring. But right now, it's 3 Mercedes at the top of the chart. 2 from Acura ASP, that's 88 and 87 cars, and 1 from Get Speed Performance, one of the many teams based across the road from the Nürburgring circuit at Moispath, in a real industrial estate that's popped up where once there were fields, but big business. And of course the whole point of the construction of the Nürburgring circuit back in the 1920s was to relieve unemployment in a very rural area, and now it's got a whole race centre. And for Get Speed Performance, great run for them. It's up into third place overall in that number 2.
Caron Auger in the number 10 Hudson Genio BMW. That car 4th quickest remaining there. Time set earlier by Jörn Klinsmann. So up to turn 9. Karim Auger, just epitomizes what the amateur side of our sport is about. Loves his motor racing, loves endurance racing, maybe more than sprint racing, because he likes the long game, as it were, and gives a driver who is not a sort of white-knuckle pro driver the chance to get in and settle in and enjoy driving a racing car around some of the best racetracks in the world.
And also against some of the very best, well, the best GT drivers in the world coming here to perform their arts. But he is the AM in a Pro-Am lineup, and he knows that is his situation, but he loves the challenge. But from what I'm hearing, he's getting quite close on the penalty points for discipline. I think there was a speeding in the pit lane offence this morning, and that's one that's very frowned upon, I think one could say in particular here. GPX Racing Porsche, that's been well placed all session. Matt Campbell brought it in. I didn't see if there's a driver change, but that car being shared with Earl Bamber. Mathieu Jaminet ran it in the first part of the session. Probably going to have Earl coming out sometime soon. If they split the session, stop at 30 minutes, change over, stop at 60 minutes, change over, then it all is fair and square. Now, David Pittard, just a couple of weeks ago, set the fastest lap of a GT3 car around the Nürburgring Nordschleife in a race. So the British driver who's really made his mark at the Nürburgring, down in 32nd position here, but I suppose you have half an excuse for the BMW M6 if you choose to have one, because the M4 is on its way, but he can certainly make it fly at the Nordschleife.
It's only made it fly around some of the circuits we've visited throughout the season, and it is a car that's coming to the end of its competitive life, but still in certain circumstances and certain conditions. Do not ever discount that number 34 BMW, because it's got a strong driver lineup. Nick Yellowly and Jake Dennis alongside David Pittard, and any one of those three is you'd have in your team any day of the week.
Absolutely so, and it's great to see drivers like David Pittard, who didn't have a huge amount of family wealth to throw in his racing. He's chipped away, and with Walk and Horse Motorsport BMW, he's found a real niche, and particularly this past year, when he's also prepared to hang the tail out, and he's very, very aggressive in traffic in the early laps of race, so always a driver to watch. But right now, he'd rather he was at least in the top 20, but for BMW M6s, apart from that amazing lap on fresh rubber, of course, by Jens Lingman, all is good. But let's go and find out for a driver who's not at the front of the field, for a change, Dries van Toor.
Dries, you're clearly struggling. What's the problem?
We have quite, we're on a struggle bus, so let's say like that. We've got quite a lot of understeer which we cannot work away. So yeah, we're struggling a bit, but for sure we still have one evening to sort everything out and try new things for tomorrow. But well, for sure it will be a big night, and we have to work hard, and hopefully we can figure it out for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tomorrow that counts.
Exactly. So it's still a long way. It's like still a 3-hour race to come up. So anything can happen, but we just have to make sure that we are there, not that we are getting lapped or something.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Normally when we hear from Dries van Toor, he's bobbing up and down, he's full of enthusiasm. There's a great big pause as Charles Weerts, his teammate, drives around the circuit before he spoke. That's a driver who's deflated, John.
Yeah, I mean, look, the team are going through a schedule, and they may have an inherent problem which they're trying to dial out at the same time as do the prep work for the race on Sunday. Now, Dries van Toor, if he knows what the issues are, he's not going to tell the world, because that's information that's exclusive to the team, and you don't want to give away too many of your secrets to the opposition. It's much too competitive a championship to allow that to happen. But clearly, we're not seeing the level of performance from this car that we're accustomed to see. I mean, there are 3 Audis, one on 8th, one on 9th, and one on 10th. And certainly one of those is a sister car, the 30, to the 32. So there is pace in the Audi. It's just not showing in the 32 at this time.
That said, the fastest of the Audis in that 8th place overall, John, is still over half a second down on the ultimate pace set by the fastest of the BMWs thus far. So it didn't really work for the Audis at the sharp end of the grid. Maybe in some ways this afternoon on a hotter track, it's actually slightly more encouraging for them. But certainly 19th place overall is not where I expect to find Charles Weerts at the moment. As hard as he's charging in this 32, trying to find some pace or maybe just some balance for the car as you get to the point of tyre degradation coming in. It's not just about what happens at the start of a set of tyres.
No, well, I mean, Circuit Barcelona-Catalunya is not a circuit that endears itself to an understeering car. And, you know, you can make certain mechanical changes, you can make aerodynamic changes, you can make driving style changes. But if the issue, the core issue, is an aerodynamic or mechanical, then that's what you've got to focus on. It may turn out that the aerodynamics are the ultimate fix for the car. You know, at the same time you're running around on the set of tyres that's probably done the best part of what would be a 1-hour stint in a 3-hour race. So you need to be careful, especially here, not to go down a path which is following the track. I keep referring to this issue about following a track. You can see just turning in there, Weerts turned in, he had turned in quite aggressively, and the back immediately wanted to respond. So that's being done to try and overpower the front of the car to get the front effectively to turn in. It's almost like dirt tracking the car into turn 14.
So just running through the classes, fastest overall is a Pro car, second place is a Silver Cup car. Those are 2 Mercedes from ACA ASP. And top of the Pro-Ams is in 3rd, also Mercedes. I would normally say also from ACA ASP. When you see Jim Ply, you expect that to be the case, but that is not. It's from Get Speed. Right, the 163, a Lamborghini, marooned in the pit garage at the moment. So they're not using any tyres, but for Norbert Siegler, Giacomo Atoe and Albert Costa, who was desperate for a good run on home ground, being a Spaniard, repairs going on.
Well, they're working under the hood at the front, and I think they might be putting on a different set of discs. There's certainly something that the engineer there it is. So either that's just been removed or it's about to go on. In the meantime, So you could suggest, are they working around something to do with the braking, because the master cylinders will be up front of the car, or is that a mechanical change to either to a damper or to a roll bar? Probably more like a mechanical change to the suspension than anything else. So a number of changes taking place at one time on that 163 Lamborghini.
Okay, John, it's time to have an invitation class update. The Audi Evo 2 is 13th overall. That's just 9/10 of a second down on the ultimate pace in this pre-qualifying practice session. The other car with a red dot next to its name is the BMW M4 Gt3. Might be the first time somebody would have seen that. That is down in 29th. That's 1.6 seconds off the pace. Right, Jim Pla flashing his lights. Has the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari driver seen him into turn 10? Well, if they have, they went across his nose, so it's sort of rather ruined both of their laps. But look at the sector times for Jim Pla. This wasn't going to be fast anyhow. He just wants track position so he can get on with what we call getting on. But the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari 488 being driven at the moment by Christian Hook appears not to have seen him. Quite hard, the lights are flashing and it's an acid bright yellow.
Well, I mean, Jim Pla clearly wants to get ahead of the Ferrari before he starts the next lap. And is he going to get up alongside and up the inside? And wow, I mean, now 4 corners he's been denied the opportunity, and you can see the headlight flashing, indicating that Jim Pla was not impressed. Clearly he feels he's the quicker of the 2 cars, and maybe the Ferrari could have been a little bit more considerate. And there again, the lights going. You know, if you could read Morse code, I'll tell you what, you get some wonderful messages.
Yeah, fairly direct messages, I think, if you're an expert. But I mean, the frustration there for Jim Pla is simply he wants to be able to run at the pace that the car can run at this stage on its tyres, as he works towards understanding tyre degradation and the setup that he needs to achieve. But right now he's compromised, so he's not finding out what he wants.
But this is what's going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly.
You've got cars that would lap maybe a couple of seconds off your pace, but you can't find a way through. So we've got now the 77 behind the 93. Jonathan Reed gets up and looks to find a way around the Sky Tempesta Ferrari. Looking backwards from the Ferrari and coming into turn 13. Then the short run down to 14 here, then 15. Lamborghini's backed out of it, and quite rightly too. What's the point of getting stuck up the rear of another car and then having your pace dictated by that car?
Right, I'm just going to test your memory, John. Do you remember the identity of the car that fleetingly went up? It was Mercedes, went into 3rd place and then suddenly had its time taken away and went to the bottom. Well, that's Fabian Schiller. He's just improved. He's had an improvement, but he's still down in 43rd position. So he had that one really good flying lap, now chipping away at the bottom. That's the Ram Racing Mercedes, sharing with Rob Collard and Sam DeHaan. It's black and it's pink. But a driver who was celebrating 2 weekends ago at Valencia, pushing on as always. Enrique Chavez Jr. in the Barwell Racing Lamborghini, getting to check out the countryside at the top of the hill there.
That's the kind of exit that will get noted now. Whether there's been more that kind of exit on board with the 77 Lamborghini coming into turn 5. Let's see where he can plant the nose. Not really quite where you'd like it to be, but I've seen worse. It runs wide on the exit, and then the short through the kink of 6, then get yourself sorted out into 7. Watch the exit now, because you overrun the curve at the apex of 8, and then up the hill and launcher into turn 9, runs curve on the inside and gets as a consequence, and that was really running the curve on the inside, is what threw the car slightly offline on the exit, then down the hill into turn 10. So Chavez trying to gain performance, but down in 35th position. It isn't going to happen on this lap, albeit his first sector time was a half a second plus improvement.
Yeah, but if he'd been able to just even retain that extra half-second improvement, that would have moved him tidily up a good 10 positions or so. So into the top, pretty much into the top 20. But lap aborted into the pit lane, and see if he carries that speed up to the white line. He's coming in quite fast. Yeah, that's one of the better ones. Could still find a few more meters. There's the white line. And let's go down to the pits, because Albert Costa has been caught by Gemma.
Albert, we've seen the team working frantically on the car. What are you working on?
Well, we are struggling, and we're doing some big changes in the car. I hope to find some good speed now. It's a shame now, because we are losing a good time to prepare a little bit more the race for tomorrow, but I believe with them, and I hope they will
find the solution and we will rock it.
Is it grip that you're struggling with?
We are struggling. Now compared to the other drivers, we are missing a little bit of speed, to be honest. But it's only Friday, Saturday, sorry. And yeah, for sure the team will do a great job, and tomorrow will be, as always, fighting for the top, at least, I hope. Thank you.
So that was the 163 Lamborghini. Are you struggling for grip? We're struggling. He didn't pin it down, but I mean, it was more than just grip there.
I think that was a case of eye contact. If you'd really had eye contact with Albert Costa, he would have just melted. He'd have said, what do you want to know? I'll tell you everything.
Yeah. You do need someone like that who's a bit of a wobble for the McLaren going down into turn number 1. And you talked earlier, John, about the temptation to just try braking a little bit too late into the first corner, and then you've got to unravel. You've got to undo all that you've done good.
Yeah, Oliver Wilkinson probably had a little heart and mouth moment, because what we see on screen and what the driver actually feels, it's the seat of your pants that gets the message first. And if that message is unreceptive, as it would have been in that instance, then you get out of the throttle, and then the whole process of beginning to lose time, and particularly into turn 1, you're compromised before you even get into the corner.
Yeah, and the fact that turn 1 feeds so quickly into turn 2, you haven't ruined one corner, you ruined a couple, and then probably your turning point for turn 3, which keeps on arcing right. And then turn 7, 8, so many cars running wide there, John.
Yeah, I mean, the way the car is with changing direction from left to right, and Oliver Wilkinson got on the throttle. You could see it actually slid the back of the car through the exit of turn 8. So again, the degree of traction or grip that the rear has got is diminishing.
Certainly is, but of course with these stints in the sprint race, they come in pretty much half an hour is how they split the race, but it's an hour here for this final round of the endurance series, and they've got to be used to carrying their set of tyres for a full hour. But right now the McLaren sitting still in 6th place overall, however just under half a second down, but Wilkinson hasn't been sitting those times, and he's one of those drivers kicking up the dust, running very wide on the exit of the final corner. And, no improvement on time there, but there is the margin we can see. Oh good, Albert Costa's wish has come true. If you could wish more, they could get some wheels for that car as well, and then off they would go. So the Lamborghini still waiting for Emil Frey Racing to finish off the act.
So hopefully we can wait and see a set of tyres that is going on. I mean, if they'll not be sticker tyres, that's for sure. But there is a set of tyres that, well, one would assume might have a smaller amount of mileage on it than the others that the car has used over the 2 days of running, so that Albert Costa can go out and deliver. We know he's capable of delivering a time to put the car at the front, but whether he can do it in this context is another matter, as Max Hoffa in the attempt of racing. Audi makes his way around, turns 12, and then he gets to clear the Ferrari, stepped aside and let it go through, which is good manners indeed. If you're coming in, then give the driver that's on a lap, give him space.
Yeah, you can't afford to be just considering life and the behaviour of a car. If you're backing it off and bringing it in, you've got to be fully on your toes, looking in your mirrors, and not just think about what are you going to tell the team engineer. So Max Hoffa goes on to another lap. The attempt to racing 99, Audi's been pretty good at the tail end of the season, and certainly Dennis Marshall has really been flying, bringing Alex Arca along, and Alex is sitting second in the Silver Cup Championship, but he has an outside shot here. There are 26 points to play for. He's 24 points down in that Silver Cup class.
Actually, we've got a bit of purple on the screen, Bruce. It's Louis Michels, or actually it might have been Andrea Bertolini in the 52 Ferrari. They've recorded the fastest speed at the end of Sector 1 at 202 kilometers per hour. But that's strange, because I'm seeing 212 and
214 from some of them.
214, and so why is there a purple up against that car that sector of the circuit when others have gone quicker? That's a question to be answered.
Well, isn't it just? Does seem a bit of an anomaly. I like to use that word from time to time. So, right, Max Hoffa again. The body language of this car, John, pushing, but actually pushing quite hard at that point in the circuit. I was thinking it was earlier, it was all cool, calm and collected, but that was turn 9. You do have to push at turn 9, the corner over the crest of the hill before that short-ish infield straight, slightly shorter than it used to be with the the modified and generally rather kinder turn 10. He's through there, turn 11 into turn 12. He's pushing pretty well on this lap, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hoffa's done a good job, is doing a good job. So whether this will see any change in his current fastest time, or the car's fastest time of 1:47.3, probably not, but I mean, it might be relatively closer than some of the others around him. So coming through turn 16, and then the run down to the start-finish line. So waiting for a lap time to appear. 1:47.3 was the best, and looking down and across was a 48.8. Well, significant, 1.5 seconds again away.
Interesting.
So that's pretty much par for the course for everybody.
It really is, but the fact that it still looked pretty dynamically exciting, and yet it was, as you say, 1.5 seconds off the pace. So it shows as your tyres start to go away, you can push as hard as you like, but the performance ain't gonna be there. Right, the number 16 Grasser Lamborghini has had its trials and tribulations so far, but not yet at the sharp end of the field. The best of the Lamborghinis is it is the best of the Lamborghinis. Clement Schmidt is the driver on board at the time, 12th overall. I forgot that had slipped ahead of the Emil Frey Racing versions. We've got Jack Aitken in 114 in 15th place overall. The Albert Costa car further down the order. Ricardo Feller down in 25th position. So actually for the Grasser Racing team, this has been a good result for them.
And Clement Schmidt likewise out of turn 5, hard on the throttle and allowing the back end of the car to slide through again, coming through turn 7 and 8. You know, the back of this car is on the looser side, so while that might aid the entry into a corner, that's the thing you've got to be careful of, is you don't allow yourself to overrun the exit, particularly up at turn 9, because it's a fast corner, and if you get it wrong, it'll have major consequences. So Clement Schmidt, or the car anyway, I'm not sure if it was him that established that time. It was
Kiko Galbiati who did it, I now remember.
Galbiati maybe. Anyway, so pushing on, but not going to expect any improvement in overall position. Neat and tidy through the entry and the exit of 14 and 15, which I always feel is the appropriate way. It may not be the quickest, but it's the appropriate way. So across the line now, 48.6 and 47.3. So again, 1.3 seconds or so difference between the best the car's achieved and the lap it's done. And that time was done on its 8th lap. The car's now done 19 laps.
Right, news from the pit lane. Car 63's only did 6 laps in the 90-minute session this morning, and they've decided they don't want to throw any more tyres at it, so they're going to park it in the pit lane. Mirko Bortolotti's brought in, how many laps have they done this session? 25, so they've done a fair amount, but they are giving away as many as 25 laps in each in the first session to their rivals, if not 30 laps to their rivals. And it's a calculated policy. But yesterday, fastest in the morning session, second fastest in the afternoon. If they're still happy the balance is about right, could be an intelligent thing to do, and it certainly frees up one more space on this very, very crowded circuit.
And it shows belief in the engineering within the team, that they know, why do we want to go out and flog around and lap upon lap upon lap, and they know the circuit inside out. We've been here for a day prior, and if they're just keeping the powder dry.
Yeah, well, it could be quite tempting to go back out, because there's another Lamborghini team at the top of the pile. That is all, but they're too mature to do that.
But this is pre-qualifying.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. They were quickest when it mattered on Friday, so they got the performance in the car. Qualifying will be on Sunday morning, when it's going to be low ambient track temperature. So that's a degree of confidence of the engineering and of the driving, and just the way that the Orange One FFF race team, established, what, 2 years ago now, has just been a sensation. I mean, in their first season, 2019, blew everybody out of the water. Difficult year in 2020, coming back again. They could have, won't have, whatever. But if that's the level of belief that they've got the car, and they don't need to continually go out and run. All 3 drivers know the circuit intimately. So are we going to benefit from doing it, or are we just going to wear the car out, maybe start sowing a seed of, oh, what's happened, why are we losing time, let's change the car? They're not doing that.
No, but it's interesting, as you say, established just a few years ago, but the fastest of the Lamborghini teams is the team that was the predominant Lamborghini team not so long ago. Grasser Racing Team got for Godfrey Grasser's car, and in the interim, M4 Racing moved across from running other manufacturers and joined Lamborghini, have got race wins on the board. So Godfrey's team has sort of fallen to third in the pecking order of the Lamborghini crews in the GT World Challenge, and they've got the bragging rights today, but really interesting to see who's got the bragging rights after qualifying. But so far, the 63 Lamborghini does look fantastic for Orange 1 FFF
Let's
Racing.
look back to Friday morning when the 63 Lamborghini was quickest. Which car was 34th quickest in that session? Give you a clue.
I've got a choice of 45
I'll give you a
others.
clue.
Was it from Godfrey Grasser's team?
It absolutely was.
There you go. The joys of numbers. It may seem boring from a distance and sometimes from close up as well, but an interesting schism. So Godfrey Grasser's team has moved forward, but it's the experience of knowing, also saving your rubber, John. The Pirelli rubber around here works very well, but it has a life, and it's how you choose to run these two 90-minute sessions. Are you quite happy to go around on fairly tired rubber, or do you want to see how good it is when it's fairly fresh? Well, clearly for the Orange 1 FFF Racing Team, they've got their answer to that.
I would refer back to Friday morning because that's the immediate picture most teams found. And as the 63 Lamborghini has illustrated, they're limiting the amount of mileage, so they are using less rubber. They will want to have as much of that fresh rubber for qualifying. Well, they'll probably have at least 2 brand new sets for qualifying.
Right, again, with the Race Vision AWS, the top speed VMAX, it's the BMWs. We saw them this morning. They were 271 kph, and 3 of them are now on 272. David Pittard, Jens Klingman, and Thomas Neubauer. So 2 Walkenhorst Motorsports car and a Buisson Junior, but the BMWs just lacking grip elsewhere. They've got the grunt, that's for sure, around here.
Straight line performance is excellent around the rest of the lap. Well, you say that. I mean, the number 10, when Jens Klinsmann did that time early in the session, I mean, the car has got pace. It was at that point just over 1/10 of a second away, or 2/10 of a second away from the 88 Mercedes-Benz. So certainly in the hands of Klinsmann, that car has got competitive pace, but then it's a Pro-Am entry, and it'll fall away when the other 2 drivers do their stints.
Right, little message on the screen. Car 52 reported to the stewards they don't like this one. Pit lane speeding. It might be a smaller matter, as a small margin, but a limit is a limit. That's Louis Michiels and Andrea Bertolini, one of the front runners in the Pro-Am class. We do have an improvement for one Ferrari, though. I'm just taking a little look that David Pirel has improved. The only improvement for quite a while, but that's only put them 41st. This is the Rinaldi Racing example. David Pirel, Benjamin Hites and Fabrizio Cristani. That should be higher up the order.
I guarantee you're right. I mean, it's, we don't know what the issues would be with this particular Ferrari, but certainly, in my opinion, it's sort of positioned to where we would expect to normally see it.
Yeah, I mean, so with a field as big as this, you will get drivers further down the order than you expected, but 41st is not where you'd think you'd have this car. If you said to me, pick where you want to put it, I'd say somewhere around 20th. I wouldn't say just over 2 seconds off the pace, so they've clearly got some head scratching at Rinaldi Racing, German team running Ferraris for a large number of years now, but this is not their normal position.
And still looking down, timing and scoring to look for the 51 Ferrari. Where is it? Has it moved up at all or not?
Well, actually, just while
it's
you
down
look,
in 34th position.
it hasn't gained its
keeps
any
falling.
time. It's falling away. David Pirel did actually improve, so got into the top 38, as he likes to call it. The South African racer from 41st to 38. Small reward, but he's at least under 2 seconds now down on the ultimate pace. The wrong side of 2 seconds must feel like, well, night and day, but no change at the top. It's the 88 ACA ASP for Mercedes from the 87 ACA ASP Mercedes, top of the charts. Where is the Audi charge coming from?
Well, Frank Bird is charging along at 18th position in the 31. So that's one of the WRT team cars, a car that is just 1 place ahead of the 32. Robin Friens is now behind the wheel of that 32. He is the 3rd driver in for the Endurance Series, and interesting to see if you might say a fresh head has got any views or thoughts on where the pace will be found or could be found in the WRT, the lead WRT team Audi.
When we heard a short while ago from Albert Costa, he was generally bemoaning They just couldn't find any grip. A little bit more has been discovered by Giacomo Alto, who's moved it, but only just into the top 20, into top 30, the 29th position. So that was the 163 Lamborghini we saw in the pit garage. So small margins of improvement, but 1.6 seconds down from the ultimate pace. And this is such an interesting circuit. It actually must be a nightmare for engineers. The changing track conditions. You think, right, we're working in one direction, but the track conditions change, the wind conditions change. It is so super sensitive, and a lot of drivers are going to be very confused indeed. Just over a quarter of an hour remains. I don't think questions are going to be answered here.
I mean, the questions I want answering are Iron Lynx down in 34th position with the 51 car, and 38th position with the 71 car. Now, all I can say is both Iron Lynx Ferraris are consistent. And so therefore they're not having one spike in one car and one major drop off on the other. They're both at the back of the field, which is a very unusual situation.
It certainly is. So bear in mind, I'm just going to run you the points past you. Leading the way is that number 51 Ferrari in terms of championship points. They're 13 points clear of the 32 Audi. Where is the 32 Audi? It's down in 19th place. Where is the 51 Ferrari? In 34th position. It seems extraordinary. How many championships in the world could you have a practice session leading up to qualifying for the final round and find the championship leader that far down the order? It's extraordinary.
In the meantime, we've got a new top 10 sitter. That's the number 7 TalkSport Mercedes. Berke Bessler, Turkish driver, has got up into the top 10. The time 1:47.1. Welcome a green arrow indicating a top 10 entrant. I mean,
it's been a while, John, but
ever.
And for Berke Bessler, who's brought in this weekend to share with Oscar Tunja and Marvin Dienst, this is a fantastic run for the young Turk, and he's also competing in the GT4 race here in a Bmw M4, so very busy indeed, but well done to him. So might have been new rubber, or it might have been a new driver, but anyhow, that was very good indeed. 6/10, just under 2/3 of a second down on the ultimate pace.
And there is the car, the number 7 of Bessler, now finding himself engaged in running up behind the Sky Tempesta Ferrari. Oh, he knows he was quicker, and he thought I was going to find a way through the 93. Well, it might have been in through the door if he continued to stick his nose in, going through turns 12 into 13. So he's backed away from it, having made a significant improvement up into the top 10. So backs off and has another go, gets it all lined up, fired up, comes under 16 and aims and heads off on what will be his 24th lap.
One of the young guns in the series, just 21 years old, turns 22 this December, but really stretching his legs. He's actually taken the GT3 racing in a very positive fashion. Raced Porsches to start with. Clio Cup in Italy back in 2017. You remember that one very well, John, I'm quite sure.
Yes, what was it? It wasn't a Zoe, was it? No, that's an electric, I beg your pardon. Clio was the internal combustion engine version. One I'm familiar with.
Yes, exactly so. But there they go, you know, a big step up, and I must say, moving up to GT3 this year, he seems to have got a handle on it, and to get into the top 10 here, very well done to him. So that TalkSport WRT, the black Mercedes, has been very strong. The sister car, the white one, we've seen suddenly just coming to rich vein of form in the Sprint Cup. But this 7 car has just been consistent throughout the year in both the Sprint and the Endurance Series. And good to see for a team, TalkSport WRT, that really their background is rallying, not racing. They've crossed the great divide with great style, I'd say, over the last 2 to 3 years.
So down the hill into turn 10. Bessler's got himself back into the position he was 1 lap ago, and is behind the 93 Sky Tempesta Ferrari, and he's got Jonathan Wee behind the wheel. So he's being a little bit more patient, realizing that I've caught, but I'm not going to find a way through. But will he be patient, or will he be impetuous as you are in your youth? Just showing patience. And will he come into the pits this time? I suspect yes, he does. Body language said, I am coming into the pit lane.
It certainly did, but he'll deserve a pat on the back, the young Turkish driver, so good job for him. 0.65 of a second down on the fastest of all the cars, also Mercedes, the 88 ACA ASP example, time set by Raffaele Marcello. Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari continues on its way with Jonathan Wee, 33rd of the 45 runners. Just to remind you, we did have 46 in free practice this morning, the first of the 90-minute sessions, but the 188 Aston Martin from Garage 59, the car shared by Chris Goodwin, Johnny Adam and Alexander West, is being investigated. The team fear it may have a cracked chassis. They hope to get that repaired, but they have no running in this 90-minute session.
Just over 10 minutes, Bruce. Where have the other 1 hour and 20 gone?
Well, gone away they most certainly have. Best of the Aston Martins, by the way, is the one that's more of a guest entry in the championship this weekend. The Oman Racing Team. Example, Ahmed El Hati, Giacomo Petrobelli and Charlie Eastwood, who's the driver who generally sets the time in that, but that's down in 31st position.
With Charlie Eastwood in the Oman Racing.
Right, we've suddenly got a car moved up to 4th place. John has nearly fallen out of his chair. It's the one that doesn't count for points. It's the Evo 2 Audi, the new one that was so super quick over the crest of the hill at turn 9. There's running on board with Jonathan Gui, and if you see a flash going past, it'll be Marcus Finkelhock, who moved up to 4th place.
And personal best in Sector 1, but Key was overall quickest in Sector 3. And I suspect that Winkelhock, well, he's got a brand new set of tyres on, will go out and try and do another, an even quicker lap, which has probably caught people unawares in the pit lane, because they were thinking, well, nobody's going to really make an effort, but there we are. That Evo version of the Audi is the Audi R8 LMS GT3, to give it its full title, and then have to add on Evo 2 or whatever it is.
Keep going. By that time, it's halfway around the lap.
Well, I've run out of breath trying to get it all out.
So, impressive time there from the new Audi. Do take a look online and see what it looks like compared to the current Evo Audi, but this one won't count for points. It could be a slight confusion. The other car that won't count for points is the BMW M4 Gt3, but that hasn't had such a glorious run. It's 1.7 seconds down in 30th place overall, but the M4 is going to be replacing the M6 in BMW's stable, at least in the GT3 category, and we will see what that can do through the race, but certainly Audi can be very impressed with the pace of the Evo 2. Car number 40, the Mercedes, has been up and down the charts through the course of the day, but it's one of the 2 cars from SPS Automotive Performance. Nicholas Bourne, Jordan Love and Yannick Mettler, and
I think it's
was just outside the top 10. It's Mettler behind him, but he's down in 28th position, 1.5 seconds down on the pace, but pounding round, which is what most of the cars are doing right now.
So as Jonathan Wee continues on doing a run of laps, and he's had the attention of the Mercedes for a number of laps trying to find a way through, and that didn't succeed. So now we've got, is that the 63 or the, can't quite see which of the 2 Lamborghinis it is. I think it might be.
163, well, it's driving into the pits. We'll get a chance to see that as it comes past the commentary position. Jonathan Wee continues on his way, though.
So these are the feet of Jonathan Wee, so left foot way off on the footrest, now getting into position as he comes over the crest of the hill, the run down into turn 1. So right foot will come off the throttle. There we go. And again, I keep saying it every time I see it. I just don't know why the Ferrari brake has got such a long stroke. But whatever it is, the drivers aren't complaining, and they're seemingly getting on with it.
Okay, the Lamborghini you saw behind was actually one we haven't seen too much of in the latter half of this session. It's the number 19. Phil Keen's brought that in. They're down in not penultimate, one before penultimate position, 43rd position. That's not truly representative, one feels. 2.3 seconds off the pace, but one of the 3 cars from the Orange One FFF Racing Team. But of course, at least they can share their knowledge across all 3 of their cars.
Jonathan Wee getting on the gas, coming out of turn 5. Then over to 7, and off the brake, and then just back on the throttle gently before he spins it up as he tried to get traction. Again, that's just indicative of what most people have been struggling with, and that's a lack of bite at the rear of the car when you really get the throttle fully open. Then down into turn 10.
Well, it's all just about mileage now, pounding round. In fact, some of the cars may even get over 40 laps completed in this session. The likes of the 33 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari, that's got 39 laps under its belt. So it has been a case of mileage, but some of the others have only just got into 20 laps. And of course, we had that 163 Lamborghini in the pits that hasn't got to 20 laps. It's done 19 back in the pits from Giacomo Altoe. That was the one that was looking for grip, and now I'm starting to sense a few more cars coming in. Jonathan Cui is among them, so there is Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari running in the Pro-Am class, leading the Pro-Am class, down in 33rd position overall. But more importantly for them, if this was qualifying, I think they'd be quite gutted, because in class position in the Pro-Am class, they're not even in the top 4 or 5. I think they're 7th overall in class. No, 8th overall in class. So that's not what they want. They want to just make sure they can get the equivalent of a podium position in terms of the Pro-Am class, and then they will be laughing.
It's an improvement from the number 7. The Marvin Deanster's gone up into, in the 6th position for car 7. So that is also an improvement. So again, one might presume or assume that that's fresher set of rubber. You don't find those kind of improvements just simply by making an eighth of an inch of a change in a roll bar. There was 51, and we're looking to see where that gets down, and still Alessandro Pierguidi behind the wheel. 34th position. Watch for the first sector time on this run. Into turn 1. No, into turn 3. What's going on there?
Hard to equate, but look, the clock's counted down. We're in the final 5 minutes. This is the championship leading car. It came here to Barcelona looking to, never easy to do, just to knock this one into the basket, collect the title. But at the moment, their 13-point advantage has been hard earned, but they're going to have to really fight to see what they can retrieve. Maybe they feel they've got the pace when it comes to qualifying setup and performance, but in these longer stints, it's just not looking too brilliant for the Iron Links.
Well, if you're going to start outside the first, let's say, 4 rows of the grid, you better be prepared for a very tough, maybe very frustrating afternoon's racing, because the difficulty of overtaking around, you can just see how much on the throttle, the balance between steering and throttle pedal from Alessandro Pierguidi. He can't open the throttle sufficiently because he knows if he does, the back of the car is going to get away. So he's trying to just work within that balance, and he gets it wrong into 13 now, 14 to the left, 15 to the right. Watch for the back of the car stepping out of the curb while he keeps it in control. Now, final exit, turn 16, and he's over 2 seconds down in the middle sector, 2.9 seconds down to 149.4. Well, that isn't going anywhere.
No, absolutely is not. The clock is going somewhere. 3.5 minutes remaining for some. This session probably can't come to a close soon enough. If they, it can if they've got the setup for their car, but for others, it is an interesting run. And I think, John, if you're starting, as you say, outside the top 4 rows, you've got to maybe start thinking quite creatively about when you're going to, how you're going to change your pit stops from the rivals. It's going to be very crowded in this pit lane. That's going to be a factor. Do you stop ASAP and see if you can claw it back that way?
I mean, if that's the case, a lot of drivers, well, what time's my flight home tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be super close, and when it comes to qualifying, it's going to be separated by thousandths of a second. But I must say, in these conditions, and these are not the conditions we'd have in qualifying. Tomorrow's qualifying starts at 9 in the morning. This is now coming up to 3:15 in the afternoon. The track temperature is way warmer, but in cooler conditions this morning, warm conditions this afternoon, the Mercedes are looking very strong. They had the top 4 positions in pre-practice this morning, or practice pre-qualifying. That was, and now it's the top 3 here. Strong.
The one spike in that Mercedes domination, I imagine, will come from the 63 FFS Orange Racing Lamborghini. They have been extremely self-confident, sitting out and not running when others have been pounding around, and it only takes from each of the 3 drivers, Mirko Bortolotti and Marco Mappelli, and then Andrea Caldarelli, 3 exceptional drivers in that 63, to go out and find a way to split up the Mercedes domination that effectively we've been watching over the previous, 3 sessions.
Yeah, they're going to have to work their track position, get in among their rivals accordingly. But one rival that's in the right position, he was second yesterday morning, first yesterday afternoon, and going well again now, top of the chart, second this morning. So it's actually first, second. Oh no, second first across the 2 days. It's the 88 Mercedes, top of the pile. Only by 0.149 of a second in this session. Riding on board now with Phil Keane, about to cross the start-finish line for the last time before the checkered flag comes out, down in 44th of the 45 runners. He's actually improved his final sector time there, but that is a car that doesn't seem to be completely in love with this circuit, the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. Sorry, FF1.
Exactly.
Sorry, I've got it wrong. I was looking at Lamborghini as not Barwell.
Now we're looking at the 163, Norbert Siedler behind the wheel. So coming up to the conclusion of another lap. That car's down in 30th position, and the best lap for it is a 148.114. So I mean, it's very confusing, and if we're confused, I don't know what some of the teams are.
You know, we don't have to make the changes, they have to make the changes, they have to make the guesses or the applied logic in a moving situation.
Marvin Dienst, does he have further improved up to 5th place?
He has, while you weren't looking.
Yeah, 146.7, so that's another good lap for the number 7 TalkSport Mercedes. And again, the only, well, I say that, Valentine House Clos in the 159 Aston has also now popped up into 12th position. So there are teams out there who are prepared to put a set of fresh or rubber on to get a, let's say, truer impression of what the car will do in these temperatures and track conditions.
Well, the checkered flag is out, and I noticed that Marvin Dienst's best lap was followed by one that was a 100th of a second slower, so pretty consistent on that fresh rubber. Clearly fresh rubber being used. So we've now got, with the checkered flag having fallen, the final drivers coming around to complete their final flying laps. It's 3 Mercedes at the top, 88 and 87, the 2 runners from ACA ASP in this pre-qualifying session, and the top Pro-Am runner, it's the number 2 Get Speed Mercedes, Jim Pla, Olivier Grotz and Florian Scholze, with the time from Jim Pla. They are the top 3. Best of the rest. The car that's best of the rest couldn't even score points if it finished in the position it is now, which is 4th place, because it's the Evo 2 Audi here, just for a demonstration run. Will not take points off any of the championship challengers. Then 5th place, Marvin Dienst in the TalkSport WRT Mercedes, and the best of the BMWs, Jens Klingmann, who's now back in the Buisson-Gignon M6. The car from today, but not the car from tomorrow. That is the BMW M4, but that is down 31st of the 45 runners in this pre-qualifying session in Barcelona. Norbert Siedler, pretty much the last driver to take the checkered flag. And these 2 90-minute sessions concluded on the Saturday at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. In fact, the lone Bentley rumbles through, Pierre-Alexandre Jean coming through to finish. And a car that promised early on hasn't really delivered, only 18th fastest, the number 4 HRT Mercedes, but it was quick this morning, so it knows it's got some speed somewhere in there. But the 88 car parked up early, polished, and it will be in preparation for tomorrow's qualifying starting at 9 o'clock. It's this one, the ACA 88. Driven by Raffaele Marcello, who set the time, Felipe Frago, and I don't think Jules Gounon even had a run in that session, because they parked it up early. They know what they wanted to do, and there it is sitting there. But this is the outside challenger. It's 5th on points in the overall championship for the Endurance Cup, but they require a miracle. But they've done what they need to do. Fast yesterday, fast today, every session good.
Yes, and as Jules Gounon pointed out in an interview, that we can only do what we can do. We can't control what takes place amongst the other 4 competitors ahead of us. So focus on what we are going to do and maximize that opportunity. And you know, it's going to be a massive qualifying, I think, for those all around the 88 who will end up on pole or the front row of the grid. The exciting qualifying session, I can promise you.
It most certainly will. So there are the top 15 runners, and it's Mercedes in those top 3 positions, with Raffaele Marcello taking the fastest time, Thomas Drouet 2nd quickest, and Jim Pla 3rd. So 2 from ACA ASP, 1 from Get Speed, which was the top Pro-Am runner. The car in 4th place is the Evo 2, the brand new Audi R8 LMS Evo 2, and Marcus Finkelhoff with possibly fresh tyres right at the end, bumping up into 4th place, and Marvin Dienst building on the good work from Berkay Bessler in the TalkSport WRT Mercedes, number 7 to go 5th fastest, just ahead of the 2nd car in the Pro-Am class that Jens Klingmann was so quick in. That's the Buisson-Gignon BMW. But when you get to the 2nd page, you have to go all the way down to 20th position overall for the car that is the championship challenger. It's the 32 Audi, but you know what? At least it's on that timing screen, because the car that's leading in terms of the championship with that 13-point margin is Iron Lynx's number 51. There it is, down in 35th position overall, 1 3/4 seconds down on the ultimate pace. And since the sister car is only just a tiny bit higher up the order, in fact the 83 car moved up ahead of it in the Iron Lynx knockings. It's been a confusing day here at Barcelona, and hopefully tomorrow the teams will start having a real grip on finding grip, because that was a critical factor as the teams went out. And we're looking here at the highlights of this half-hour pre-qualifying session. Super busy, 45 cars coming out to play. But it wasn't play, it was very serious matter indeed, trying to find a setup that would work for them in qualifying. They should have been working on that mainly this morning, but this afternoon in the warmer track temperatures, and they came up 15 degrees from the morning session to this session, it was about trying to find how your tyres are going to work through the course of a 3-hour race, how to make them sweet through their stint. Of course, there'll be degradation through the stint, but also degradation from drivers running off the circuit. One of the BMWs having a moment there out of turn 5. Jim Pla went very well in the session, but it was Thomas Drouet in the 87 Acura ASP Mercedes that caught the eye. Also quick times coming through the course from the number 22 GPX Racing Porsche. Trying to find track space was tricky indeed. The Dynamic 54 also having a good run in Christian Engelhardt's hands, but it was the Mercedes going to the front as the 32 Audi, the championship chasers, just got caught in traffic. The court trying to find grip. Jim Pla in the number 2 Mercedes going faster and faster, and this is a bit of pro-am battling. The Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari getting very close to the nose of the Barwell Lamborghini. There it is, the number 77 Barwell. Yellow and blue working its way, looking for grip, as was the McLaren running off the circuit a little bit there at the final corner. Not the only driver still to do that. Cars being pushed back into the garage, heads being scratched, assessments being made. But it was the ACA ASP Mercedes. They parked up early. They had this one in the bag. They go into tomorrow's qualifying with their tails very high indeed.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's just past 3:30 local time here in Barcelona, and we are getting ourselves ready for race 1 of the TCR Europe finale, the final rounds of what has been a long